big shakeup with coaching. Pretty much everyone's gone. The only
Offensively.
people offensively, Frost sticks around, Ron Brown sticks around, Sean Beckton, tight end coach, sticks around. With these new coaches coming in, Mickey Joseph, Donovan Raiola, and Mark Whipple, what can you tell me about them? Do you guys like the picks? I've been hearing people on Twitter say things like, we got Donovan Raiola, it's over." He was an assistant offensive line coach for my Bears with a terrible offensive line. I don't want to shit on him or say it's not a good thing that we got him. I realize the implications, but what can you guys tell me? Joe, what do you think about these coaches?
Well, I mean, Mickey Joseph's the best kid of the group. I mean, dude was a stud recruiter at LSU. I'm with you on Raiola. Jury's out on that guy. I doesn't have much experience other than he beat our ass when he was at Wisconsin. I mean, his brother played Nebraska, a little bit older brother, but it seems like they're kind of reaching for a recruit there because I think there's a family member that's a stud. But that one's kind of shocking. And Whipple, the offensive coordinator, being as old as he is, kind of I don't know, man. That seems a little odd. Just dude that old. I understand it's stability, but Mickey Joseph that was a slam dunk.
Yeah, when I asked you guys about Whipple, you guys both first thing you mentioned was he's 64 years old. It's like, okay, you didn't tell me how old the other guys were, so you guys feel like age is more than just a number?
No, I don't. I think it stands out because aside of like Ron Brown and Mario Verduzco, everybody on that staff was young. Around in the 40s type, like Frost. The the biggest thing that I've said for years that Nebraska needs in coaching is guys who can develop players. We're not horrible at recruiting. We've out recruited Iowa for how long, but we can't beat them because guys come here and for the most part get worse. So Mickey Joseph can recruit his ass off. He can clearly develop players. Can Whipple? I mean, he just had a stud quarterback in Pitt, but we've had stud players on accident. Nobody thought Amir Abdullah was going to be what he was. Nobody thought Levante David was going to be what he was, under Pelini. We've had other guys that come and they blow up and do what they're supposed to do. So it's like, is it the chicken or the egg with him? Did he develop him? Did he develop Ben Roethlisberger into a rookie of the year and make him, at least a good enough managing quarterback to win a Super Bowl his second year? Or did he have a stud quarterback fall in his lap? So I don't know with him. From what I hear, he's not a stud recruiter. Never really has been wherever he's done his thing. I don't think we necessarily need that from every aspect. Same thing with Raiola. How good is he going to be recruiting? To be honest, I don't give a shit if they can both develop guys at their positions because the recruiting has been fine. And now you add Mickey Joseph, who is a stud recruiter. Just develop these guys, man. That's the biggest thing. I don't care what system. I know we're going to get into it of are we moving away from the option and are we going to be more of a pro style with these hires and some of the portal guys they're looking at and some of the new recruits that they're going after. But I don't care. I don't care that people get so hung up. Gabe, you and I talked about this. People get really hung up on Nebraska's tradition and culture and names. But the fact is, between the coaches and ADs that we've had since Frank Solich, we've gone through systemic and cultural changes every few years. So what is it? What is the culture that people want to stick to? They just revert back to the Osborne 90s. But that's not going to happen. So if you want to come out and with Mike Leach's air raid attack, if it works, do it. I don't give a shit. If you want to go the old Georgia Tech style and go back to that style of triple option all game long and it works, then do it. But I'm not excited about Raiola because his last name's Raiola. If he can develop players, I'll be excited. I don't care too much about every guy, like I said, being able to recruit. But I mean, your three things in college coaches, no matter what they're coaching, is the recruiting, the actual coaching, game planning, and developing players. As long as these guys that are coming in can develop players, we could recruit worse than we have been, and we would get better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we got to develop guys. I mean, and then let's look at also a picture with, I just kind of shit on him, but with Whipple being as old as he is, all we heard is Frost needs to be a CEO. He needs to take care of it. I was one of the guys. I'm like, he needs to just let it go. I mean, he's not going to run over a guy like Whipple. You know what I mean? The guy's been around. Like, hey, this is what I do. He can trust that guy, I feel like, to run the offensive room, run the offensive show, and focus on checking out everything, the whole team, not just quarterbacks, wide receivers, that day, the offensive game plan for the week. So maybe getting an older guy isn't a bad thing, but like you said, develop the damn players. I mean, we watched Martinez. The same play. He was a better player as a freshman than he is as as a whatever he is.
He regressed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially as a passer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say he's horrible and shit on the kid. I mean, he gave maximum effort, but he just never got developed. And I don't know if that's scheme. I don't know if the pressure got to him. Who knows? There's a lot of variables there, but I hope that if Whipple is the guy that we're being told he is, then we should see a drastic change. But you mentioned the air raid, the guy from USC,
Graham Harrell.
Harrell. Yeah, I mean, he was said to be interviewed the same day. I mean, complete opposite. He's like 35, 36 years old. So, but he was a throw the ball over the field guy. So clearly, we're moving in a different direction on our offensive scheme.
Let me ask you, hypothetically, let's just say I haven't been paying attention to Pitt. What's his scheme look like? What are we in for?
Gary, you want to? I don't have a lot on him. I really just kind of shocked that, not shocked. I was not thinking we're going this direction. But the kid that they got at quarterback there is pretty damn good. I mean, he's a Heisman finalist. I mean, he throws the ball all over the place. I don't know in his completion percentage or any stats.
Okay.
But
is
like
Whipple coming in and he gets to change the offense to what he sees fit? Is he going to be running the game, or is he just going to be coming in and assisting Frost running his offense?
Well, all the reporting has always said that Frost, was turning it over. Well, we heard that last time too when they hired Lubick. Lubick was going to be the play caller. Lubick was going to be the guy that's he's running the show. And as Frost just said, he still had a heavy hand in everything he was doing. So, I mean,
he flat out said in the one press conference, he's like, "I never said that. I call the plays." Like, yeah, you did, dude. Everybody, like, we're all wrong. You know what I mean? All of us heard something. So who knows what's going to happen with that? But I mean, I know we're talking about Whipple, and when a guy's coached that long, aside of your Sabans, and you could go back to Saban in the pros if you wanted to find something to shit on, you're going to have ebbs and flows, ups and downs. He has plenty. I feel like all of these hires, except for Mickey Joseph, play into whatever stance you already have, right? So if you don't think that Nebraska's going to work under Frost, you can go, man, they got a guy who's never coached offensive line. He was an assistant. He wasn't like a stud offensive lineman himself, at least when it went to the pros. Who has a clue if he can recruit, develop? The Bears' offensive line has sucked since he's been there. And he wasn't even good enough to replace the guy who made the line shitty. You know what I mean? He was just an assistant to him. You could say the same thing. You got a 64-year-old who's roamed around between the pros and college. Yeah, he's had, the Ben Roethlisberger story, and he's got this year's story of they were like 120-something in offense. This year they jumped up to 5th. So, I mean, you can angle that either way you want and say now you're bringing in guys that still can't recruit, still can't develop, but it's a change of pace or a change of name, so everybody thinks it's going to be good. It's not going to be more the same. Or you could flip it and you could really hang on. This dude took a 2-star whatever recruit at Pitt, made him a Heisman candidate, did what he did with Roethlisberger. He's older than a lot of these guys who's got more experience. He's going to be able to do a lot more. Raiola, is coming from the NFL to coach line here. I mean, you can look at it and play it either way you want. It's just, I honestly think that the Raiola hire is going to be more pivotal on how quick we turn the corner next year.
Oh,
that offensive line,
yeah.
was so bad, and now they're talking about Juergens possibly going to the NFL. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, that's going to suck if he goes." I'm sorry, man. He could be our best offensive lineman if people want to say that. But I mean, I could also be the fastest guy in the neighborhood, and I'm still slow as shit. You know what I mean? So it's like, whatever, man. If you're the shiniest turd in the toilet, great, good for you. But it's
Still a
just
turd.
100%, and it's like, can he take what's there, what's left there? If we can pull a guy from the portal, or we have it's hard on offensive linemen to come in as true freshmen and start. But I mean, if these guys can, if he can develop them, then that's going to be
But
more pivotal than okay. And I mean, the offensive coordinator can do shit with different setups where guards aren't pulling to set up the option and the jet sweeps and stuff like that as much if we are getting away from that. And you take a lot off the quarterback's plate where he doesn't have so many decisions to make in such a short time, right? If you go to more of a pro style, especially if you have a guy that can somewhat read a defense. But I don't know, man. To me, you fix a lot of issues when you have a sound line, offense and defensive line.
well, yeah, but I mean, go back to you're right. I mean, if you have an offensive and a defensive line that's good, shit. I mean, it takes a lot of pressure off the quarterback. Puts a lot of pressure on the opposing quarterbacks. That's the key to any football game. But uh, you got a problem there. All we've heard for 3 or 4 years now under Frost is, oh, wait till the freshmen play. Wait till we got this freshman coming in. Man, if you're relying on freshmen to come in and take over and elevate your football team, you're screwed. If you're on the offensive line, you got to have guys that have been there. I mean, there's a big difference between an 18-year-old lineman and a 20-year-old lineman. And all we're relying on is 18 and 19-year-old linemen, and we don't have any depth there. We don't have any experience. Game experience is everything on offensive line. I mean, I get it that some of these dudes are studs coming out of high school, and I think that they can develop to be really good. But when we're planning on, oh, the freshmen are going to come in and you're going to see a big difference, I think you're setting yourself up for failure, and I think that's why we've seen the past couple of years. I mean, I don't know what Whipple's plan is, or Raiola, how he likes to coach zone blocking versus just smash the guy in front of you, pulling guards. I mean, it all remains to be seen. I guess we're going to have a better picture of that, spring ball when we see what they roll out with the offensive line.
Let me ask you about Mickey Joseph. So I got this feeling. I think other people have too. I know Gary and I talked a little bit about it. Did you see this hire as a little bit deeper than just somebody coming in and being like an assistant? I mean, because I see this as a future potential
Scott Frost replacement.
Yeah, I do it hands down. I mean, you and I've talked before about it. I wasn't a fan of the Frost hire, period. I mean, he's here. I didn't think he should have been fired this year, simply because who are you going to get at this point? But I think you nailed it. I think this is the guy that they're saying, hey, if things go haywire, this is a guy internally that we can turn to, and see what he can do.
Is it a good fit?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he can recruit. I mean, I think I heard this, and I can't confirm this, but I think he was one of the top 20 recruiters in the country at one point, LSU. I mean, that speaks volumes for a guy that can go into a house of a kid and bring him to LSU. It's a lot easier to recruit LSU than it is Nebraska. So
why isn't he?
I guess we'll see.
Why isn't he a head coach already somewhere? If he's so great,
right? Who knows? I mean, he's still a relatively young dude. I think he's 46 years old, 47. So
he should just be a little bit older than Frost. He was there right before, or a little. Yeah. He was there before Frazier, and then Frost came in after Frazier. But
he might be 50.
The other thing,
to be honest.
Yeah, the other thing too, he was here in 89 to 91, something like that. So, every time I hear his name, and I think of that game against Oklahoma where they hit him out of bounds and he sliced his calf open, and then Grant had to come. Anyways, the other thing too
53 is his age, 53.
If they're worried about, say, Trev Alberts and them are worried about if they do, especially like a mid-season, We get off to a bad start, and 5-6 weeks in, they decide to shit Cam Frost. You kind of get in front of the. You get in front of the backlash from the fan base because you have your ex-Nebraska guy, you have a guy that's won a championship at a coaching level, you have a guy that can recruit. You know what I mean? So it's not like
he checks a lot of boxes.
He checks a lot of boxes, and you don't create so much chaos mid-season or even right at the end of the season if things aren't working out and they go to get rid of Frost.
So, you brought up something I want to touch on real quick. About a month ago, I was at a Big Red dinner, and Alberts was the speaker, and he said on there, somebody said, oh, Frost has got 1 year, and Alberts goes, I have never said that. I never said Frost has 1 year. And he's right. I kind of went back. We all kind of assumed that Frost has got 1 year to get this right. But, I mean, I'm not saying that he's got 2 or 3. I mean, no one knows. I think that's between him and Alberts. But I don't.
Well, I think that's up to his output.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, so let's say next year, I mean, my God, he's won 3 games the past couple of years. Let's say he wins 6 games. He doubled his wins. I mean, is that good enough to keep him around? Maybe. I mean,
probably. But I'm not saying he has 1 year either. But I am saying
there's a lot of people that do. They think he's got 1 year.
I agree. But if he comes out, if they come out and look anything next year like they did this year, he's limiting himself to that year. I don't think he can have a repeat of this past year and survive it, is what I'm saying. As far as the 1 year thing goes. If he comes out and there's improvement, we start winning games, especially games we should win. We win a couple of the close ones, or it just looks
shit. I mean, every
different.
one of those was a close game. I mean,
yeah,
win half of them,
Yeah. I agree with all that. And I definitely agree that there's no question. So, like, one of the last times we talked, and every time you and I have talked about coaching changes, my first thing to you is always like, okay, and get who, right? I don't look at coaching changes the same way as like a relationship. Like, this isn't working, we got to break up, and then I'll work on me and I'll find somebody else to do it. You have to replace a coach with a coach. So when teams or fan bases are like, this guy sucks, let's get rid of him. It's like, okay, but then get who? What are you going to do to better your situation and not prolong or worsen it? That question's answered now having him there.
Well,
right?
You're right. I mean, I also, one of the things that is we react to losses and say, this guy's got to go. We got to get him out of here. He sucks. In the AD world, as I kind of had a couple conversations privately with some different ADs, they know what's going on behind the scenes. Notre Dame came out and said, when Kelly left, that they understood that they knew that was coming. Oklahoma said they were caught off guard. Those ADs talk. They know who's going to be leaving well before it goes public. I think a lot of that stuff is ironed out with the agents. And if you're a good AD, you're having those conversations. That there's going to be potentially a lot of movement. I think Trev knew that. The buyout was way too big. I think there's a lot of variables there. And I think they know that well before they make that move public, whether or not there's guys that are interested in the job. You can always, what do they say? They put the feelers out to agents to see what's going on. So I agree. I mean, who's out there? Who's willing to come here? This would have been a horrible year for Nebraska to fire Frost, to go and fight that mess of coaches and all the changes that's going on. So, you're right. I mean, who were we going to get?
Unless you knew you could get Mickey Joseph. But
right.
The counter to that, like if I wanted to argue against that, is like, okay, you've got a guy that nobody knew of until they were talking about bringing in new guys, right? I mean, granted, we knew. I mean, but I'm saying like overall in general.
Oh, right.
Like people didn't know who this guy was. To Gabe's point, why wasn't he up for other head coaching candidates? What style of offense are you getting if you get Mickey Joseph? We don't know. You know what I mean? He's coached under other offensive coordinators. So I mean, it's not a given. Like there was so much put into Frost's stock when he got hired that they threw the bag at him and they left it to where do what you want assistant wise. Like we're hiring you, you're the man, your system, everything from what you've done building up to here. And then 4 years later, Alberts and them, in my opinion, came up and went like, all right, dude, your shit ain't working. So we're going to take some of your money. It's going to go towards these assistants. You're going to clean house. You're going to get some help. You're not able to just do this all yourself. This isn't little UCF, right? You're in the Big Ten. You're in big boy football now. And doing the same thing every year is fine if you're progressively getting better, but you're not. So they took more of a hands-on approach over his program, his system, whatever he was doing. And but they hired him to do what he was doing. If you're hiring Mickey Joseph as a potential head coach replacement, what are you hiring him for? To recruit his ass off? How well is he going to develop outside of?
Yeah, that's the only thing right? Is he can coach up.
Run?
Yeah, he can coach up receivers. He can recruit. So you're hiring a guy. If that's the thought, to replace Frost down the line, there's so many questions. And again, I go back to. And I know we've fallen on some really shitty times, but this isn't the place for a first-year coach to come in and cut his teeth, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know. We're going to see what Mickey Joseph is. You know what I mean? We're going to find out.
That's a good point, and that's also, if we could be wrong. Like, I'm just saying, I feel we all feel. I'm not. You guys usually are, but no. But if let's say we're right. And that is the intent of, like, okay, we've got our next head coaching spot or in place if need be. Well, now you're replacing a first time. And he's not a first time head coach. Frost isn't. But at this level, head coaching, now you're doing that with Mickey. Now you're replacing that with another.
Right. I agree. I completely agree. Yeah.
So maybe he's not. Maybe he's not set up to be the replacement. Maybe it's like, we'll reevaluate it, whether it's 6 weeks into this year or 2 years from now, if need be.
There's clearly something there because, all we heard is, we're going to hire offensive coordinator and then we're going to fit the pieces in on what that offensive coordinator wants to run. Well, then we come out of nowhere and it's like, oh, well, Mickey Joseph. Now, I'm not saying you don't go get the guy. If you have the chance to get him, you get this guy.
Only because Frost tried getting him, a year ago, year and a half, 2 years ago.
But I mean, that was kind of a no-brainer. But that also clearly tells me that Frost is still going to have a heavy hand in the offense.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be to his detriment, to be perfectly honest. But now switching systems, I mean, who knows? I don't know, man. I mean, the jury is going to be out. I really have no clue on what this is going to look like. I mean, looking at the numbers from Pickett, the kid from Pitt, I mean, he threw it. He attempted almost 500 passes for 4,300 yards, and
we attempted 300.
He attempted, completed 334, attempted almost 500, 67%, 42 touchdowns, 7 picks, but he was sacked 29 times.
I think Nebraska attempted in the 300s for passes last year.
Oh yeah.
But that's one of the things I'm worried about, or not. Whatever, just kicking around is like. Mickey Joseph's gotten these receivers and developed these receivers to be NFL receivers. That's in a pro style type of offense, not guys that are pinning back and blocking for option and toss plays a lot. So if Frost is still going to try and run it, like Gabe and I were talking earlier, tight end and wide receiver, in my opinion, have been the best recruited positions at Nebraska for however long. We keep getting these guys, whether it's Spielman, Stanley Morgan, Torrey this year. What's his name that went to Kentucky? Robinson. All these guys, they leave because, in my opinion, they don't have anybody throwing the ball and they're not in a system that lets them shine as a receiver. So are we going to get more of that? Are we going to get better receivers than we had that get pissed off and leave because they're expected to block